Greetings, Earthlings! Welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat, a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association. I'm your host, Jamie Delzell, and I want you to join us for a trip down another rabbit hole where we find all kinds of unusual and unexplained phenomena. Remember, the first 30 minutes of the show is absolutely free and available on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, and iHeartRadio. Head over to Patreon and catch 30 minutes and beyond of extra audio as we dive even further into today's topics, exclusively for our subscribed fans with top secret clearance. Now let's dive right into it. Hey everybody, we're live and we're diving right in. We're here as always with Mr. Ryan Stacy and his coffee.
Tea.
I knew that.
Ginger.
Hey.
Hi.
I thought you were being rude.
We are live.
Anyway, here we are. No, I know we're well aware, and welcome to Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Thank you guys. We're a little shaken here. We're supposed to have our lovely guest. I don't want to give it away yet because hopefully she'll pop on here soon. But we'll just, the show must go on, as they say. So we'll just talk about some stuff until hopefully she gets on. So you know what I'll do though? I'll get everybody hyped up in case she does come on, and I'll just do her intro now. So does that make sense? Or
the intro? Yeah, why not?
Okay, so here's we'll announce her, and hopefully she'll just appear magically. So our guest tonight, fingers crossed, is Chantal Chauvin. She's a member of TESA, one of the newest members of TESA. She's actually like the rock star of TESA now. She's come in with guns ablazing and sort of taken the whole process by storm. Amazing worker, doing good. She really focuses on mysteries of consciousness and metaphysics. She's a Reiki practitioner and an experiencer herself, so we're really looking forward to hopefully diving into some of her experiences. She's got a lot. Super exciting. She's reported with TESA many times, big fan of TESA, and we are thrilled to have her as part of the team, and even more thrilled to talk to her. So hopefully that happens. Also, one last thing is she has a this was my favorite quote. Where is it? Oh man, I don't think I think she said it as a joke, but I really liked it. I don't see it. She has beautiful eyes and a lovely voice. It said something along those lines. I can't actually see it now, but that was my favorite quote. Yeah. So how are you, Ryan?
I'm fine. I'm great.
Cool.
So let's talk about the topics then. And
you want to get into her topics that she wanted to talk about?
Maybe in general, maybe generalize, just in case she does pop in, or what do you want to talk about?
Well, I don't want to get into her topics because, those are her topics, and I don't want to talk about her topics without her
All right,
topicking.
What's in door number 2?
Door number 2. Do you want to go down that door? It might take up the whole show.
That's fine.
Flat Earth.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. We will not talk about flat Earth again. How about, let's talk about, I don't want to say much about it, but I'd like to know, you have a nice little segment that you're going to do. We did flat Earth, and now you're going to be talking about the Jersey Devil.
Mm-hmm.
So do you want to give a little sneak peek, a little preview of what that's going to be all about?
Okay, so tomorrow, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and which is 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
I don't think it's Standard in Pacific.
Or sorry, Pacific. Yeah, that's right, Pacific Time. We will be doing our Patreon special, and I'll tell you more later because Chantal just popped on. So
hey, what? No.
Yeah, Saved by the Bell.
It worked.
Hey, and the camera and everything. Welcome,
Yeah.
Chantal. Did you hear your lovely intro?
No, I missed it all, but I'm sure it was. I'm sure it was lovely.
Well, as you can hear, she's got a fantastic voice, and you can see her lovely eyes. So we're extremely happy to have you here, Chantal. It was an awesome intro. I mean, one of the best, I must say. um, and let's get into it, man. You, like we said, you're part of TESA. You're an integral part of the team, and I was unaware of any of your experiences, and I would love to talk to you about them. So let's dive into your family history, and you know, yeah, just let's just hear your story. Let's have it.
Sure. I won't get into too much about my family history, but essentially, I grew up in the realm of the paranormal, just like that was everyday normal occurrences. It was my grandmother was a well-known psychic in the community. People would come from all over Detroit and all over the place to visit my grandmother. And so growing up, it was kind of known too that it followed the females in the family. It was kind of just like the women were more intuitive and more into it. And she always announced that I was one with the gift. And I always thought she was a little kooky, but always had a lot of fun with her. She babysat me most of my life. She took care of me, raised me partly, and so she's departed now, but that's only been a year or so. And since her departing, you know, I feel like my intuitive aspect of my abilities has increased tremendously. And I don't know if there's a connection there. I don't like to think about those sorts of things, but yeah, she claimed to be an abductee her whole life. Ironically, she was born in Timmins, where I currently reside. So it's interesting how that went full circle for me, and that is when my experiences really started to get into a realm of, for me, a whole new territory, which was UFOs. Like I said, the ghost spirit, that sort of thing was just always around us. And an example I could give is my grandmother used to always want to teach me how to do you know, reading tarot and palm reading and those sorts of things. And my mother, growing up with that in her life, she was really opposed to it. She had this belief that that was what invited the spirits into the physical realm, and she was very much against it. And one time, my grandmother was babysitting me or watching me. I was about 14 years old, so she didn't need to babysit me. She was just there, and she was showing me how to read, you know, fortunes or whatever with just a regular deck of cards. That's what, like, she considered her specialty. And we were having a good time of it. And my mother walked in and she was like, "What are you doing? Stop." And it was, you know, after that, that the house we were in at the time had an amazing amount of paranormal activity, that in just odd occurrences. All of us had weird experiences after that. And we were renting that place at the time, and we ended up moving about a year after, and those experiences kind of like followed.
Wow, that's pretty wild. So there was nothing going on before the tarot reading stuff with your grandma, and then it kind of just opened the door.
I wouldn't say nothing, but it wasn't like to the degree that it was. And it changed a lot of things, actually. One thing I, in hindsight, look back on is how the family dynamics changed. It felt like everyone was fighting more frequently. People were, you know, not getting along well. There was just some sort of like heavy energy that thankfully didn't follow us. But my mother for sure was adamant that that was the reason.
Huh. Wow. Super interesting. What do you think?
I'm not sure. Like, uh, I'm not sure. I don't know if I could speculate that that's a connection. I do believe that my grandmother did not know per se like how to close that door, and that there was definitely a thing there with her, and that was something that always made me sort of fearful. And when I began kind of having experiences, that was one thing I focused on a lot, is like blocking myself, being able to function in society so that I don't have like all these outside messages coming in without my permission. That was a big thing. And because that's where my gift is. She was more of, you know, a fortune teller type, you know, intuitive, and I was more of a like messages coming in type.
Cool. Okay. Well, let's kind of touch on that a bit. When did you start? Well, you said when you moved to Timmins, that's kind of when things started picking up a bit. And you said that was more on the like ET UFO side of
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Before that, I didn't have, well, I did, but I didn't really know. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
closed myself off to it. It was like something that I could look away and go, yeah, that was weird. And somehow just put it in the back of my mind.
Hmm.
But it was always around me. I just recently discovered. But um, so I guess an example I can touch on from my youth would be when I was a kid, very, very young, probably about 7 years old, was my first maybe experience with a UFO or an alien entity. And I woke up. Ironically, my grandmother was there because my mother was a nurse, so she was gone often, and my grandmother was there when I woke up. And I told her I had this scratch on my stomach, and I showed it to her, and I said I woke up with this, and I had this weird dream, and it's like a memory in my mind till this day. I won't leave, but all I really recall is being lying down, and above me was just really, really bright lights, and I was clearly moving on like a stretcher or something. And all I could do was move my head back and forth like this. And that was what I wanted to do anyways, because the light was so bright above me, I didn't want to look up. So I opened my eyes, I was all groggy, and I could look side to side. And there was just like what I described to her was like tanks, like glass walls with like weird vegetation, trees, and animals in them, like they were
Oh,
keeping pets. And
oh,
I woke up with that mark on me,
wow.
and I wanted to show my mom because she was a nurse, and it disappeared within like an hour of me being awake. It was completely gone.
Huh.
That's the only memory I have of that.
What can you
So it's
describe?
kind of,
Like,
sorry?
can you go into more detail about what the marking looked like?
Yeah, so it was on like below my belly button, a long horizontal kind of like red. It almost looked like a scratch, like if somebody took a nail to my skin and just kind of scratched into my skin, not deep or anything, but that's what it looked like. And I even remember looking on my wall in next to my bed or around my bed for a nail.
Right.
Huh.
Nothing.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool. Well, or probably not super cool for you, but it's definitely interesting. Um,
Yeah,
so,
well, and then so my grandmother made me feel like she told me, oh, yeah, because she told me she was an abductee, right? She's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, they take all the women in our family. Obviously, you're next, basically. And they may have put a tracking device in you, is what she told me, and struck
Huh.
the fear of God in me. But
Right.
to my defense, I didn't take it very seriously because we all knew she enjoyed scaring children. Like, that was genuinely her favorite thing to do.
Well, so you didn't take much stock into that. So, did you ever talk to your mom about any of that? I know you said that she kind of like was the exact opposite sort of thing, but did she ever talk to
Yeah,
you about any
so
experience? Go ahead.
yeah, basically, like, I told my mom what happened and and it was just kind of scuffed off as a dream. And, she didn't really believe in my grandmother's abduction stories or anything of that kind. But everyone acknowledged ghosts are real. We've all seen one. Like, we've seen many. Yeah, like that was just normal in my life. And like, I was taught like how to deal with if I saw one, what to do, and like I wasn't made to feel crazy in any way at all when it came
Cool.
to that.
So, and have you seen spirits and ghosts and stuff from like a really young age, or when did
Oh
that
yeah.
kind of start? Like right from the get-go?
Yeah, probably. Like, I think the first one I ever saw was actually an animal. And it was like when I was just old enough to speak, maybe 3 or 4, because like I remember it. So it was like around 3 or 4. And I was petting the air, apparently. Like, everyone was like, what is she doing? This crazy child. And yeah, I used to like, people would just see me doing things like that, and I would be like, oh, it's this cat who just came into our home. And yeah, yeah, I had a name for it and everything, and that's it. I named
Huh.
it. I thought I adopted this cat. So that was my first ghost cat experience. I had another one with when I was an adult, but that was just a whole other experience. Essentially, I was lying in bed and I had a duvet, like I was awake.
Yeah.
I'm just lying there because I didn't want to leave my bed. I was like, oh, it's nice and warm, it's toasty. And I could hear my boyfriend watching Sports Center in the living room, and I wasn't interested in that. So I was just literally lying there. And out of nowhere, I have cats all my life. I know what this feels like. It jumped on the bed, and I sat up because I thought it was my puppy. And I was like, get off the bed. And nothing was there. The puppy wasn't there. So I lied back down, and I just felt the paws walk onto me and lay on my chest, and I watched the duvet compress, and I felt the pressure, and my heart started racing, and I called for my boyfriend. I was like, get over here now. And as soon as I did that and he came in, I felt the pressure leave. I watched the duvet rise, and then I felt the little footsteps go off of the bed.
Wow.
And then later I found out, I called my mother about it, and she's like, oh, by the way, your cat, which I've been watching for you, has died.
Wow.
She's like, I didn't want to tell
Wow.
you because it was your birthday. And that's when it happened.
Wow.
Well, I was gonna ask if anything had happened, so like that was a good. Wow.
That's
Yeah.
pretty.
So I was
Wow.
like, man, if I knew, I would have reacted way differently to my cat saying goodbye to me.
So cats have spirits too, right?
Right. It's cool to know that he, she, what that they tried.
It was a she.
She tried to.
It was.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah, super cool. But it was creepy at the time. I'd never experienced anything that like to feel the pressure and to literally watch the duvet go down. That was to me
That's
a
wild.
whole other thing.
That's next level. It's kind of weird. You're telling these stories, and like two of them already made my like hair stand up because like I've had almost identical experiences in both of them. The cat thing I had recently, like a couple of years ago. I think I told Ryan this. So in Jerome,
Yeah, right, yeah.
so almost the same thing. I know what it's like to have a cat jump on the bed. I've had cats my whole life, and yeah, same type of deal. And the other thing that made my head kind of spin is when you're talking about kind of your first abduction thing, and I've never even thought this up until you were talking about it. When I was a kid, probably around 7, there was this point I was like asleep, and in my head I thought that I saw a skeleton, kind of like it looked like it was in the sky. It looked like in my mind it was a cloud, but now seeing it in my head now, at the time I didn't know it looks more like a gray than a skeleton.
Yeah.
Which is kind of wild. And something touched
Interesting.
my back, and I just like jumped out of bed and screamed and ran. And yeah. And like, but it's weird. I haven't thought of that since that day until you said that. So anyway.
And that's been happening to me for years. That exact feeling, like, oh my God, what? This is like a correlation. It brings you back.
Weird.
What were you going to say, Ryan?
I was just going to say, like, that's the very reason why we have these experience or testimonies is for the purpose of having listeners remember things like this. So it's just awesome at this moment that we actually have a live response. And just
literally hairs standing up all over. I didn't even remember that till you were talking about it. That's so weird. So thanks.
Yeah. So like I've
You're welcome.
heard of the animal thing, not animal thing, but not just animals, but the compression of blankets or beds and stuff. Very many times.
Mm-hmm.
I can't wrap my head around science that could explain that. And then it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't happen. It's puzzling.
Science can't explain it, man.
Well,
There's lots that science can't explain. Pretty much all the things I'm interested in. The reason I'm interested in them is because they're not explained, and I'm experiencing them, and I have all my life. You know what I mean? Like,
and the way we
so another thing. Oh,
yeah. Go ahead. No, go ahead. We got a delay, so sorry, my fault. Go ahead.
Another thing about my like childhood UFO dream abduction thing, I began to associate them with blue lights, and that's in my present day experience something that's coming through too. So just big bright blue lights that consume the whole room, and I would recall being like petrified in fear, knowing that it's going to happen. It got to the point that I would sleep in my brother's bed even though he was a bedwetter. I said it on national whatever.
Yes.
I was terrified. I was terrified.
Wow.
Wow.
Wow. Thank you, Chantal, again for even just being on and sharing all this stuff with us. It's awesome. Lillian Gagnon made a comment that just made like, did you guys read that?
No.
Can you see the comments? It says, guys, they're coming and are here. Before that, too, Argo had a question as well.
Yes.
In there. But he also mentioned some things too. He said extreme terror or pain can bring an experiencer to life for a brief moment during an abduction event, and I agree with that. I mean, like even when you're sleeping, you know, like if anything, any pain, you know. So thank you for that tip. He also says rapid healing is very common. So I believe I'm also an investigator as well, right, Chantal? You've been talking with him. So
yes.
And then his question here is, how old was your grandmother approximately? So he's probably got his gears turning right now, so that might be something he's thinking.
When she was abducted, or like just like when I would imagine when she was abducted, she was a child. She described to me a story that I'll never forget. But she said she was in Timmins, so she moved from Timmins to Windsor with her mother. because there's even a crazy story about my grandfather. I can't find any history on him. He literally disappeared off the face of the earth. There's
Wow.
some crazy conspiracy stuff about him. Essentially, like a long line of gypsies too, so it's just like all weird stuff. But so my grandmother, he disappeared after a trip in Florida, and she moved to Windsor with my grandmother when she was about 7. But my grandmother said when she was 4 or 5, midday, she was home alone, and she saw a gray peeking through the window at her, and she hid behind the television stand, thinking that like somebody was trying to rob them or steal her or whatever, and that they came in through the walls and grabbed her from behind the television stand. That was a claim she had.
Wow.
That's not cool.
No.
No.
Well, that's not a good experience at all. Wow,
If
did she
it's real.
talk?
But yeah,
Well,
it's not my
Well-
experience, but that's what she told me, and I do believe it now. But at the time, I
Well-
was like, okay, yeah, sure.
right, with all the other, well, with all your experiences, right? You kind of have to think back on that stuff and think, well, maybe she was telling the truth. Did she tell you much about actually being abducted? Like what happened when they took her or anything?
Not really. She would say she didn't remember a lot, but she said they came all the way till like into her adulthood, and that's when, like, she said, okay, they've got their eyes on you now. And she just always said that, like, I was the one with the gift in the family. Like, she said a lot of interesting things, but like, yeah, I love her dearly. Like, she taught me a lot.
Lisa said
Super interesting.
stories can be very frightening.
So one thing
Fact.
about my experiences is, like, I've never actually seen them, but I've gotten impressions of them. And I reported one of my visions to you, Ryan, that happened to me a few summers ago.
Okay.
And it was genuinely the weirdest thing. I've never experienced anything like it in my life, or prior or since. But essentially, I was going through a really introspective period trying to navigate what this new reality is for me. And I started seeing energies and auras, like, basically, like, in my vision, and I got my eyes checked a billion times. I don't take my glasses off. But in my vision, all I can see is, like, little speckles of light, like, basically all the time. And then auras on the trees, and, like, bright colors everywhere. It was very much a sensory overload for me. And I literally just woke up one day, and it was like my whole, like, vision had changed. And I was literally freaking out. You can ask my boyfriend about it. And it took me 2 months, solid 2 months, to get a handle on that. And I was just like, thank you for showing me. I can see a different way that different sites exist, but I can't function in this society this way, essentially.
Yeah.
And so it kind of, like, stopped, and now it's kind of like on command. I can pull it out, which is way more refreshing. But when I was going through this period, I had a hard time being outside because it was just so much. And one day I was like, it's such a nice summer day. I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to go outside, and I'm just going to sit and watch my beautiful lake view. And I was sitting there, and another thing that kept coming into my mind often throughout all these times was find your inner child, find your inner child, find play, find happiness, find your inner child. That's all I was, like, hearing a lot of, and I can't really describe that. So one thing I used to do a lot as a kid was look up at the clouds and like pretend I was seeing things, or you know what I mean? And I was watching the sky form in like this spiral kind of cloud formation. It was literally just making a hole, and the sun was shining through it. So it was beautiful. And I was just sitting there admiring it, having, and I took out my camera, which I never do because I don't take a lot of photos. And I took a video of it. And I didn't say anything. I just took about a 1.5 minute long video. And nothing happened. I was just doing that. And then I just watched it until it was gone. And I chose to look at my video that I just took. And that's when I got this message. And my boyfriend came up and I'm like in tears, crying. He's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Look at the camera." And it must have been like a one-time thing, because the next day I tried to watch it again so that I could like really draw it out in detail, and it was gone. And then I started crying again because I'm like, this is what my boyfriend thinks I was freaking out about, and there's nothing there.
Wow.
So this was a very, very like emotional thing for me. What I saw is like sort of challenging to describe, but essentially I saw myself as a toddler, a little toddler, and I know it was me. I can't tell you how I know, I just knew. And in this was a big tall white ET, and they took out then a toy that I vaguely recall having comes into view, and it was like they were playing with it like this in front of me as a toddler, and it felt, all I could tell you is I felt love, comfort, happiness, all these really, really good emotions, and I was bawling. And then as the video progressed, the ET faded. So the vision was like the ET faded. I, as the toddler, remained there. And then this dark figure formed and appeared and attempted to do the same thing, took the toy and tried to put it in front of me. But I was obviously petrified in fear. But this figure turned into a clown, which is really creepy, because my brother had a huge fear of clowns for no apparent reason, and I had a huge fear of ETs for no apparent reason in our childhood. And our rooms were like connected but divided.
Wow.
So I don't know what the heck that means, but that's what happened. And I asked my mom, I found that toy on Google. I found the image of it. And I said, "Mom, did I have this toy?" And she said, "Yeah, but you would have been about like 2 or something."
What? Wow. Okay. Well, on that note, we do have to cut to commercial, but we got to get back into this as soon as we get back from break.
Okay, we'll see you guys in 5 minutes. Man, that was intense.
We are the ones in the dark. We are the first on the scene. We are the last to leave. We will counsel you. We will comfort you. We will save your life. We are the unsung. We are the underdogs.
Hi there, this is Dave Scott from Spaced Out Radio, where together, my friends, we own the night. On our website, spacedoutradio.com, we have a place called the SOR Sightlines Report. All of our investigations and people who inquire are turned over to TESA, the Experiencer Support Association. Ryan Stacy and his crew, what I like about them, they're independent. They're not working for anybody, and they want answers. We want answers for our listeners and people who inquire as well about their experiences. It's a great great tandem, and we love being teamed up with TESA. If you haven't heard of us before, that's okay. We'd love to earn your listening ears. Join us 9:06 Pacific Time, 12:06 a.m. Eastern for 3 hours of live entertainment 7 days a week.
Hi, this is Ernie Hudson, Winston's Ed Moore from Ghostbusters. I want to let you know that Ryan Stacy, he's created the Experiencer Support Association, TESA. You can check them out at www.tesacan.org. Now, they investigate paranormal, UFO, and provide support to experiencers. You can check them out at, like I said, www.tesacan.org and see for yourself if they're really Ghostbusters. I can tell you this, they are a non-profit organization. So good luck, have fun, and keep on busting.
Have you ever wondered if there were others just like you? People with extraordinary abilities and unique intuitions. People who experience unusual and paranormal events. People who have more questions than answers. You are not alone. Experiencers Anonymous. Visit tesacan.org.
And we are back.
Yes.
I don't know. My
Man.
camera
All
went
right.
off.
Let's. Well, there you are again. Man. Okay. Go ahead. What? Were you going to say something?
Yeah.
No. You were
No?
just
Okay.
continue. I was just waiting for the next chapter. That's all. I was just...
Yes. Thank you so much. Holy moly. The first half of this has been just mind blowing. I know you've got a ton more because we're just kind of touching the top here, and I'm excited to hear more about, well, everything really. Holy moly. This has just been mind blowing for me so far. So, geez, I can't even remember where we were. Okay, you just take it from where we were. Man.
So that was kind of, that was the end of that story. Like
That
was later in my like UFO experience. That was like the latter end.
Okay, yeah, we
of
got to talk about that a little bit. So, how long ago was that?
That was just like last summer.
Wow. Okay.
Not the summer that just passed, the one before, I believe. Yeah.
So I just need to go back on it a little bit because I got to wrap my head around it. So you decided to film it. You were filming it. At the time you were filming, you didn't really see anything. You're just like, this is cool. It looked normal. And then you
I was
watched
like,
it back.
the clouds look like cowboys and stuff. Yeah. Watched it back.
And then you saw all that stuff when you watched it back.
Yeah, and my partner walked in on me as I was watching it back. Like he came up from like behind me, and I'm like literally crying, and he's like, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "Watch the video." And like he's like, "You're watching clouds. Like, what are you talking about?" You know what I mean?
Oh wow.
So, but
So-
in my mind, it was like in my mind, but not. It's hard to describe.
So
I got you. I can understand what you're saying. I get it.
let's put some logic into this. Let's try and figure
Well,
out
good luck.
let's try and figure out what may have happened,
Okay.
because the phone may not have picked it up because it, depending on what's going on in the multi dimensions or interdimensions, you need specific types of cameras to see different types of light. So our eyes see differently than cameras do sometimes, but we don't see everything that we should see with our eyes either. At the same time, if it was inside your head, not in the sense of being made up, but in the sense of your mind's eye or your intuitive brain, do you think that it's likely, actually more likely to be something that was happening in real time, or something that may have been happening in the past or the future? And if there's anything that else has happened since then that might be able to validate what you saw.
Yeah, so the only validation I have is the toy thing with my mom, and like being able to go, like the vision was so clear. The toy was the thing that was the focal point almost of the vision. Does that make sense?
Yep.
It was like that was the thing that had the most detail and the most, like, it was in your face. It was pink, it was bright. But it was weird because when I was watching it, my impression was I'm watching this vision on the camera on my phone. I'm watching a video and this is happening in the video. Like, that's what it felt like. But it also was like emotional, and it was impressions as well. So I felt like it was what the impression I got, if that's what you're trying to get at, Ryan, was that it was a message for me about my past experience, with how it was a good experience. And and the clown figure that came in had some influence on the fears that I developed at a very young age. And this is all impressions, which stopped them from coming to visit me because I was so afraid. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because they didn't want to scare me. And so, yeah. Yeah. And I guess, like,
sorry, the
go
delay.
ahead.
No, okay. Well, what I was going to say is, it comes to mind a previous case that I used to do, that I've done with MUFON in the past. This individual had a sighting experience, or ET experience, but was afraid of the ET at first, and then didn't do anything with it. But then all of a sudden, she started seeing a cat, and then the cat was talking to her, and the cat let her out, and then she followed the cat, and then there was a bunch of sequences over the years of her following this cat and doing all these weird things with spaceships and all this other stuff with this cat. But then it was later acknowledged, or later developed or discovered, that the being had turned itself into something, or in the mind allowed her to see something that was more comfortable for her, and was still able to I guess complete the task. Because in that case, a young girl is more likely to follow an animal that is friendly than a being as they've been described, right?
Exactly. I actually believe my story falls very much in line with that narrative. I have yet to really uncover that. That's still something that's kind of fresh. I'm not really seeking to find that answer, but that is something that I believe has occurred, just based off of the regression work I've done, what's gone on now in my adult life, and like just that vision to me, it was so emotional. Words can't describe it.
Wow.
Even giving a report on it felt silly because it was like I couldn't write the story. I can't describe it.
Wow. Well, thanks for sharing that. That's a yeah. That oh man, that's I don't even know. But it's interesting. It's super interesting, and yeah, it must have been obviously a very emotional thing. Really, it's cool though to think back, like just hearing that, like yeah, you wonder, is that something that happened? Are they showing you that, like, we've kind of been with you and whatever from the beginning? And
yeah, one thing that stood out was just love and like family. We are family. We are family.
Wow.
You got to be careful because strangers do that too.
I know.
Like I have, like
Abduction.
so like
Hmm.
I agree.
it's a tactic. So like that's a whole nother level. Okay, aliens exist. We believe that they're taking us or they're trying to help us and they're friendly. But now a whole nother level is interpreting the intent behind the task, because we have a hard time determining whether or not our own human beings have positive or negative intentions, and we get trapped in some unfortunate my situation.
That was the first time I would ever suggest that I even attempted or even put that ever crossed my mind, because I agree with you, Ryan, 100%. I was like, I can't place my little feeble human ideas on anything that's going on in, you know what I mean? I just can't. Like when I was starting to see craft very regularly, almost daily, I was freaking out. I was still in that fear-based paradigm. And I feel like now, in hindsight, that was like a trigger for me to get out of my mundane, like start asking those big questions again. Start thinking, go back to your childhood. Be like, you know what I mean? It was all these sorts of things that kept coming to me.
Mm-hmm.
And since really that vision, I haven't really had anything that I would suggest. I don't see them anymore anyway, so yay.
At all? That's nothing. You haven't?
No, I haven't. No, I haven't. No, I
Maybe
can't say I
you
have.
did what they wanted you to do, and that's it. They'll come again
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
when the next task comes.
Yeah, like I feel like they come to me in my dreams, and that's like what I asked for, though, by the way. Just so you're aware, I was like, I don't want to be abducted. If you're going to talk to me, talk to my astral body, because I don't want to talk to you in the physical body.
And they listen? Does that work?
Yeah.
Did it work?
Yes, it did.
I'd like
Wow.
to try that the next time I have a little intervention, because they don't listen to me. But maybe I need to be more.
Have you tried?
No.
Well,
But
there you go.
I kind of, it's a hit or miss. I need the info. That's how we do this stuff. Got message from the top. But
I don't think they need to take me for that, though. Like, that's not what they're not interested. If they want you, they're gonna take you.
Yeah, I know.
That's the reality.
But I would like to be like, hey, not now, in the morning.
I'm not suggesting that, like, I said that and they listened. Like, no, but it seems to be like that's how it goes. And so, for example, I didn't know this about myself. A lot of things I've been studying about myself because that's all I can really go off of.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I realized is, like, attempting to meditate, guided meditations, people say, like, imagine a doorway and all this crap. I can't imagine shit. I can't see things like that. So it's odd because I'm an artist and I never even thought about like how I bring art into this world. It's not like I see an image in my mind and I put it on paper. But I know from experience that if somebody's speaking to me and they're telling me a story and it's super tied to an emotion and it's true, I can see I could see their experience in my head, and I get ideas that come to me like that, but that's not how I see things. So to me, I think it's a good thing, because when I have something come in, I know I'm not imagining it, because I literally can't see things that way. When I went through regression, for instance, I didn't know if I could even do it, because that's what they do to you. Like, imagine yourself going down a staircase or whatever they say. But the funny thing is, I can do it because I can imagine, I can feel, I can put myself into the feeling of it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It's almost like I'm blind. And it's like interesting, because when I was a child, I used to pretend I was blind all the time. My mom would be like, "Why are you running around the house with your eyes closed?" I'm like, "I want to be blind." I wanted to know my house blind. I wanted to be able to navigate the world without sight.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Okay. So cool. Again, thank you for sharing all this stuff with us. But you, as you mentioned earlier, you do have some abilities. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, sure. So
I was not so excited about it.
it's not my favorite thing. It genuinely isn't my favorite thing. People think it's a gift or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, it's sort of not, because it makes me really weird. I had to like grow up with this and learn that when I know things, not everyone knows these things, and I've been called a witch my whole life because of it. Essentially, like, I just learned to like not talk about these things, and it's not till very recently, thanks to TESA, that I am. But recently, one experience I had, and one of our listeners is the recipient of the messages that I received. It was very interesting interaction, because, like I said, it's not something I do very often or even try to do, because I genuinely don't like to disturb spirit. I think if they come to me and they want to tell me and they have a message for someone, great. But I'm not going to go out of my way to bug them to tell me stuff. I just think that that's, in a sense, disrespectful, or just like me abusing my power or whatever. So this individual asked me if I could look into, and this is via instant messaging texts, and it was, I didn't think it would work. I honestly didn't. I was like, all right, I'll try. See what happens. So essentially what he wrote was like, I have somebody in my life that I want to communicate with, and he wrote that they were a doctor. And that's what I read. And I closed my eyes, and I was like looking for so-and-so's doctor, come forward. And lo and behold, I have a person in my, and I call it kind of a space. It's like my mind is a room. That's how I look at it. It's a big dark room. That's my mind. And when I go into my mind, it's a dark room, and I invite you into my dark room. And that's what happened. So he shows up, and he's a tall man. I'm describing him to him, and I'm like, he's a tall man. He's got dark hair. But the funny thing is, and I didn't mention this to him at the time, is he shows up in a doctor's jacket, like holding his arms like this, big smile, and just like a character right away. And then when I went back to read his message, he's like, "Oh, not a doctor." He said an abductee. Another part of this was, initially when he was speaking to me, I just kind of got an impression. I said, like, all I know is that this person passed before I was born. It turned out that that was the case. They passed in 85. I was born in 87. So I needed, like, it was helpful to have a name usually, but he came forward without the name. Like, he just was like, I'm ready, showed himself to me. And it was very interesting. So then there was some, drama associated with this person's passing in terms of like, how did it happen? We don't know the details. We have speculation that he was murdered. We have speculation that maybe he committed suicide. So I attempted to find those answers for him. And that's when things got a little weird for me anyway. So I didn't know this at the time, but the person that they suspected to have, murdered him was his father, and he had passed away. I didn't know that bit. So I was like, okay, let's investigate how he died, right? As soon as I did that, it was like somebody barged into my room, and he was like bouncing off the walls, like a totally different energy than the person that I was attempting to communicate with, who was also there in the room, and maybe even let him in. So this is his dad, and he's a totally I was arguing with this gentleman. It was like I was having an argument with him in my mind. I'm like, dude, you're crossing boundaries. I'm not giving messages to somebody who's not asking for it, because he wanted me to give him messages to his departed wife through this person, or to his wife who's still in the physical world. And he was just like, everyone thinks all these things about me. And there was so many cool messages that came out of this that I've never heard before. And I don't know how to process them. But one of the things that stood out between the two of them is the person I was attempting to communicate with. We'll call him Jay. He says to me, like, basically, yeah, his dad he committed suicide. His dad did not kill him. His dad's adamant, I didn't do it. Everyone thinks I did it. He's telling me all these things and just wouldn't shut up. And I'm like, okay, calm down. I'll come to you. And so this figure I'm trying to talk to, he says, yes, I had a really bad relationship with my dad. Like, there's no denying that. I had a love-hate relationship with my dad. And he said, but if I didn't have any love for him, I'm going to cry, I wouldn't have found him on the other side. We wouldn't be together right now. And he expressed to me that they were working through their stuff, working through their relationship issues. This is going to sound crazy, so that when they come back, they're not going to relive that again.
Wow. That touched my heart.
I was crying. I never heard anything like that from anybody. This guy who I was communicating with, I think because he was an abductee too, according to this person I was trying to channel for, he showed me some interesting stuff. And I was just like, because I have done these things, I think I was able to see them. Because when I was younger, I didn't have nearly as good a connection as I did this time, for one. Two, I've done these things, so I know what it's like. So he showed me him navigating through life, like through his eyes. And he was just super disconnected from everything that was around him. He was like basically living his life as an observer. Like he was just like outside of his body all the time, because he was so depressed and out of it. Like he didn't feel connected to his body, essentially, is what I got out of that. And he just showed me like how he was going through life, and it was really, really dark and heavy. But he was the type of person who's super outgoing, loud, laughing. He'd be the guy in the room you gravitate to. Despite going through all that, he was the funniest, most awesome person.
Wow. Holy.
So, as an artist, and would you be able to draw what you saw? Like, is that something that you could use those two talents like kind of simultaneously? I'm kind of put you
That
on the
would be
spot
like,
here. It's done something we've been talking
yeah,
about. It could assist
yeah, it
future
is.
reporters in you know, getting messages from the other side. Like, because for me, on a skeptic side of things, I've always had a hard time accepting information through these conversations because there's no way to validate it. But in terms
Yeah.
of a scientific method, if we were to put you in a controlled environment, such as this is the person, I get the information, I pass the information to you, you do your thing, you draw it, I share it with the subject or the person, or experiencer. Pardon me, I'm crossing the streams between like investigating and TESA world language here, and they're able to confirm that that's what they recognize that. I think if we did that process using these tools, we could science that, because if we do that multiple
Yeah.
times, because we're controlling the variables.
Yeah,
Are
I
you
know
able
what you're
to do that,
saying.
or do you need to talk to the person? Like, how does it work?
So I found when I was communicating with the person I was channeling for, they were sending me little voice clips through
Okay.
Messenger. And when they did that, I could tell you hands down what they look like, exactly what they look like, where they were sitting when they recorded it. I was in the room when I listened to it. And sometimes when you have experiencers on your show and I hear their stories, and it's, like I said, tied to an emotion and it's true, I'm experiencing it with them. I know you can't validate those things. It'd be really hard to do a still frame because it's and to do a picture because it's more like a movie for one, and
Yeah.
it's tied. My experiences have always been heavily tied to emotions. Like, I've always been heavy in the emotions. So like my main goal through my growing up was to get control of my emotions, understand my emotions, know my triggers, know all these things so that I can distinguish between my emotions and someone else's, and how, when I'm feeling somebody else's emotions, how to just navigate that in a sane way and still maintain my thinking, my truth, myself in that moment, and critically think through what I'm receiving.
Right.
And so I could draw, like, it would take several frames probably to draw out like a straight out like psychic experience, but I could likely draw somebody's like a moment of their experience. Yeah.
So let's continue this in Patreon,
Yes.
because we have to hop over to Patreon. I got 3 minutes to make the jump because the live video is gonna happen.
Hop in. Okay, so for those of you that aren't Patreon members, get over there, sign up. It's gonna go live. Thank you to KPNL Radio for playing our stuff live.
Yes,
thank you guys all for tuning in. Chantal, thank you so much. We're gonna talk some more with you in 2 minutes.
Yeah, and if you're a Patreon member, it's live now. Thanks to Chantal, she helped me figure it out. So let's figure that one out. All right, we'll see you soon. Thanks a lot. Keep your eyes in the sky and feed the world. We'll see you.
That's it for another journey into the fringe. Thanks for joining us here on Beyond the Tinfoil Hat. Catch us next week and follow us again into the realm of mystery and unknown.
For access to the entire episode and more, head to Patreon and find us under the Experiencer Support Association. You can also follow us on Facebook on our page, the Experiencer Support Association, TESA, and on Instagram, Beyond the Tinfoil Hat.